Hello, everybody. We're so very glad you're here today. Thanks for joining us for our program called The Path of a Spiritual Warrior Through Horse Wisdom. My name is Selena Poole, and my business name is Conscious Collaborations. I partner with leaders who are taking us into the new paradigm of work and spirit by producing virtual events and creative communications that speak to us on many levels of awareness that invoke the heart and soul. Before I introduce Lisa and Shelley, your hosts for today, I want to give you a few tips about getting the most out of your Hangout experience with us. Much of the energy and magic of this series happens in the interactions between you and the other participants while you're watching. So be sure to use the chat to talk to each other or submit questions here to our hosts. It's our intention that you find this Hangout inspiring, informative, and well worth your valuable time. It's just a reminder to turn off everything that might be a distraction, like your cell phone and those pesky pop-ups on your computer. Today, I'll be managing the control panel and our chat. If you have any technical questions, ask them there and I will respond. Now, this is new and emerging technology and a live broadcast, so anything can happen. But we're well prepared to take care of any glitches if they should occur. One of our favorite features, as I mentioned, of our Hangout is for you to be able to interact with us and others in our chat. I know there are a lot of new folks with us today, so here are a few tips to get you started. Look for the white column on the right of your screen. At the top of this column is the chat stream. At the bottom is a message box in which you type. If you haven't already, please say hello. Tell us where you are in the world. Your chats are public to the group, so you can say hi there to any of your friends. If you want to ask a question directed to Lisa or Shelley, click in the small square above your message to mark it as a question. That will highlight it in red for us to see, so then, as we have time, we'll answer your questions live. We're going to have such a great time today. We're expecting this Hangout to last about 60 minutes, maybe a few minutes less, but let's get started. So during this three-part series, Lisa and Shelley will share their stories of how they discovered their path as a spiritual warrior. Special guests will also share where they are on their paths and how horses play an inspirational role. You'll learn about the results of the Spiritual Warrior quiz you may have taken and discover the container necessary to implement the 10 practices of a spiritual warrior. As well as we want you to discover how you can move your path forward with Lisa and Shelley to create the life and business you've always wanted. I'm going to turn our Hangout over to Lisa to introduce herself, our co-host Shelley, and the program. Lisa? Lisa, you're muted. You'll have to unmute your phone. Very good.
Mute microphone.
There you go.
How's that?
Very
I
good.
did that before. As I was saying, I'm so happy to have Selena here because she is definitely helping us get through this new technology, but such an incredible opportunity to connect with you in a different way. So welcome to all of you. We really, Shelley, Selena, and myself, welcome you all with all of our hearts. And we are so excited to have this 45 minutes to an hour with you. And we look forward to all the interesting things and comments and stories and everything that we're going to be doing. So I just wanted to let you know that during the time that we have together, we promise that we're going to give you everything that we can that will help you to get started on your journey if you're just starting, or to continue on your journey with a lot of really good stuff so that you can be successful for creating transformational change in your life. So let me tell you a little bit about myself first. Some of you may know me who are here in the chat, and I'd love to hear for some of you to say hello so that I know who's here. And also, some of you don't have a clue who I am. So I want to tell you a little bit about Equine Alchemy And Shelley's going to be telling you a little bit about herself as well. I want to say that the journey to get to these 10 spiritual practices was very intimate for me. So these are not something that I just plucked out of the air. I'll go back a little ways so that you can see kind of the trajectory. I've been a corporate consultant and coach for so many years, and I was really burned out. I had been doing something that was not feeding my soul or nurturing me and my family other than financially for a long time. And it was coincidentally about this time that horses came back into my life. Being born in New Mexico on a farm, horses were part of my growing up. And then as my daughter began to get interested in horses, like so many girls, young girls do, I got back into horses too. And I remembered I was able to reconnect with that amazing feeling that I had when they were around. So the disenchantment I had with the corporate world led me to research, experiment, play with the horses, see what could happen possibly if I could take my gifts and talents and experience in coaching and put them together with horses. And so when I found an equine guided learning program, I thought, this is too good to be true. How can I possibly put my two loves together, coaching and horses? Well, that's how equine assisted coaching was born for me, and that's how Equine Alchemy was born for me. And so it was a very wonderful and innovative and refreshing time in my life. However, what happened when I let go of the corporate world was that I let go of the money that I'd been counting on and living on for so many years. And at first, well, I always think it's easier to say it's not about the money when you have it. When you don't have it, it becomes more about the money. I'm sure you can relate. So I was in this place where I began to doubt myself and wonder if I could really do this. And I was thinking, who was I ever to think that I could make an abundant and loving place in life through doing what I love, through living through my authenticity and really connecting to my soul and spirit like I did when I was with horses and when I'm coaching people with horses. So I was in a bad place. I was in a dark place because I wanted to turn around and go back. But for those of you who are on your path, you know that you can't do that. I tried. I did try once. I said, okay, I'm going to go back into the corporate world and I'm going to consult and I'm going to make money and I can fund my endeavor here with my passion, but I couldn't generate any business. So I think the universe was very supportive in saying, no, Lisa, you must go forward with this. And so I spent a long time with my horses, and we went through all kinds of awareness processes. And we helped each other, and they helped me to understand and get clear on what I needed in my life to take care of in abundance, myself, my family. And it was a very sometimes arduous journey. Sometimes it was long and didn't feel like it was ever going to stop. But from this process, my spiritual practices, the clarification of what my purpose is in life, and my horses, the horse wisdom, that's where the 5 energies and the 10 practices of the path of a spiritual warrior came from. Because I couldn't do this on my own. I needed some help. I had no idea. Here I was, disenchanted, feeling completely like I'd made the wrong decision and that I was ridiculous for even thinking that I could, but I couldn't go back. And there in my heart, I knew I didn't want to go back. So what to do? There we get the 5 energies and the 10 practices. And this process helped me through this dark period of my life to stick with what I knew deep in my heart was what I was here on this earth to do in this lifetime, which was to help and serve others through working with the horses and through my experience and gifts in coaching. And then also to teach others how to do that. So it's amazing what this support was for me. So we all ended up, as a result, being Equine Alchemy, the only accredited coach training program by the International coach federation with horses in the world. I mean, that's a big deal, right? Well, I thought it was amazing. I never thought I would get there. But these practices helped me to do that. They supported me. And so I went and did this, and they almost became unconscious because they became so embedded in my life and part of who I am. And then a couple of years ago, I had to turn to them again in more of a mindful way. My daughter was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and she has addiction problems as well. And I just didn't know how I was going to get through that. In fact, daily I wonder, because I need support, and I need it moment to moment. I did not in a million years think that I would get this emotional about this right now. So the path of the spiritual warrior, it seems like I'm here again. And I need those same energies and practices that the horses helped me develop so many years ago, that helped me know that who I am and what I'm here to do needs to happen. And I can't do that unless I can support myself in a way that I can support my daughter and my family through this right now. So, from that, here we are. Again, I know their power. I need to surround myself with like-hearted and minded people, and that's why I've invited you here. So thank you so much for being here with me and being part of my path as a spiritual warrior. Whew. That's like the Cliff Notes in fast version, Shelley. That's how this came to be for me. I'd love for you all to meet Shelley Whitehouse, my partner, and very, very firm rock in Equine Alchemy. So Shelley, you want to talk about how you came to be in this spot and how these practices, or what? Tell us about your spiritual path.
Yes, thank you, Lisa, and thank you for being so open and vulnerable and sharing your truth. And we're going to talk more about that later on, about vulnerability and being able to be honest and about what you're experiencing and how you're feeling. And that until you can do that, you're kind of avoiding the path. You may have picked it out, but you're not really on it. And I came to that through, so we all have so many different threads in our lives and so many different high points and low points. And I have this thread that has run through my life that, well, I like to say that even though I never went to university, that I have a master's degree in the School of Hard Knocks. And one of those hard knocks has been knocking me upside the head my whole life. And so I, too, had to come to a way to thrive, to continue to thrive, even though the same hammer has been hammering at me my whole life. And so I'll share that with you in a second. But I have an aunt who, knew that I was going through these issues, and she used to say to me, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I kept taking that to heart, like I should be really strong. I should be really strong. And now Kelly Clarkson has a song out, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger, and it seems to be a theme. But I really believe that that's not the case, that when you experience the same thing or the same, even different knocks upside the head over and over and over again, that you actually don't get stronger. It breaks you down. And in order to, like Lisa was saying, find a way to thrive, you have to have some practices in place. So here's what's been knocking me upside the head my whole life. By the time I was 30 years old, I had actually lived in 30 different places, 30 different dwellings. Not necessarily different cities, some different places in the same city, but 30 different homes. And over that period of time, I was feeling pretty rootless. So it was in 1995. My husband and I bought a house, and we renovated it, and we lived there with our kids. We're really small. We moved in when my daughter was 4 and my son was just turning 2, and we lived there for 5 years, and it was a really happy time for me. I got really anchored and rooted in my community, and I loved the home and what was happening for me. Well, a really wonderful job opportunity came along for Joe, and it was an opportunity for him to really expand his expertise, and we felt like it would be an adventure because we moved from Raleigh, North Carolina to West by God, Virginia, and I use that term because it was the most remote county east of the Mississippi River. And so everything that I had developed and created over that period of time, there really was no place for it in this new home. I had to kind of, once again, reinvent myself and find a place to live and pack a home and move a home and sell a home and all of those things, and make sure the kids were in the right school. Well, there's only 2 schools to choose from, so I only had to pick 2, and then just find our place in the community. And we did that, but housing was an issue. So even though we were only there for 3 years, we lived in 3 different homes. So again, it's that whole process. And one of the homes was a home that we actually built for ourselves. And it was our dream home. It was on 28 acres with a trout stream running through it. My husband built a barn from scratch, and we loved it. And we moved in June, and in September, we found out that he was being transferred to Colorado, even though we had been told we would be where we were for 10 years. So again, my husband went off without us to start working, and I packed a home, and we found a new place to live, and moved a home, and unpacked a home, and found the right schools and that we thought, and all of that. Okay, so now we're in Colorado. So we're there for about 4 years, and in that 4-year time period, we also lived in 3 homes, 3 different houses. So even though we were in a similar community, for some reason, this process of moving keeps presenting itself. And the final home we were there, again, we thought we'll be here until the kids are out of college, and then we'll downsize and all of that. And again, life had a different set of circumstances, and my husband's company went through reorganization, and I know many of you can relate to this. And opportunity presented itself back in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we did a big circle, came back to Raleigh, and found a lovely home. And this was in 2007. Moved in, and then 2008 was, my husband is a real estate developer, by the way. And so in 2008, the whole market shift and crash and all of that. So we had a brand new home, and in less than a year, we were upside down on our mortgage. So here we go again. And that's the next part of the chapter. But before that happened, when we moved back to Raleigh, I was feeling really depressed and unsettled, and I found that I wasn't able to trust. I wasn't able to just be fully present. And my kids were teenagers, and they were really unhappy about moving again and all of that. I was exhausted, and I did not feel stronger as a result of all of these hard knocks. And I needed a way to get through those things. And I was really, really seriously depressed. I used to joke that I had PTMD, post-traumatic moving disorder. And actually, I probably still have present traumatic moving disorder in some form or fashion. And so I took the time to just check out, really, for a while. And I didn't realize how depressed I was until I actually started coming out the other side and realized, wow, I was really, really deep. And when I started coming out the other side, it was when I connected with what I needed to do for myself. What do I need to do for myself? Where did I go? I didn't even recognize myself in the mirror anymore. And when I connected with that and started taking steps toward it, and it happens to be It was personal and spiritual development and working with horses. And I didn't know what that meant at the time or how I was going to do that. And then I found Lisa and Equine Alchemy and all that. So that's another chapter that we'll share in another story. But then I started taking steps towards that. And it was the process of going through coach training that I have to say saved my life at that time, changed my whole life. And I realized there were these paths. But just before that, I started working on what I call lessons. Lisa was creating the 10 practices, and I had created these lessons that I called living the certain way, or living a certain way. And it was really about how to live in times of uncertainty. And I created these 14 lessons, and they're very, very similar to many of the things that are on this path. And so we were really following a similar timeline and experience of finding ourselves and who we are and what we want to do in the world. And so at this point, as time has elapsed and we've had these different experiences and I've been able to embody this work through working with the horses, we've really come to realize that so many of you are coping with similar issues and bigger issues, and even if they're small, they need to be dealt with, otherwise they will just fester. And so we know there's a lot of people here who are craving a path and a process and support for your own inner calling and how to bring that forth. So so based on the feedback from our quiz, and at the time of this, we have over 285 people have taken the quiz. It might be up to 300 people by now. And we're going to share the results with the results of that quiz with you in just a little bit. But that quiz has helped us realize how many of you are in a similar place and looking for a similar kind of support and community that we are creating here. So so we're going to share those results here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Shelley and Lisa. We've had lots of people mentioning in the chat how appreciative they are of your sharing your vulnerable stories. And Cheryl even says she's now where Lisa was in the beginning as a therapeutic riding instructor, but now she knows more. There is more. She's struggling, she's 58, and she physically cannot do what she used to do, but she wants to teach more. Lots of folks, Jackie saying so authentic and vulnerable, sending you kudos like hang in there. And so also, and then also ideas about hold on, don't move again. We're with you. We're exhausted just listening to your stories. So there's all sorts of great feedback happening in the chat. So let's maybe just take a second, Shelley, and if you could tell us who this call is right for. How do the people who are with us today know if they are in the right place?
Right. Right. Well, the title of this discussion is The Courage to Begin, and that it is kind of I would say the penultimate thing to do is to just begin. And so based on so much of the feedback that we've gotten back so far, it seems like a lot of you are pretty courageous and that you have begun and want to continue. So there's a lot of adventurous souls on this call, I know, including ourselves. And so if you are an adventurous soul who is seeking new experiences, this is where we're going. If you are somebody that has an awareness of yourself as a leader and you're wanting to bring that leader forward, if you are someone who is committed to the evolution of self, but not just the evolution of self, evolution of the self in service of others. This is what this is about. If you are someone who is inspired by life and you also seek and receive solace and guidance from yourself, and if you're someone who has a passion to share your gifts with the world, this is the path to help you bring those gifts forward. As there's also challenges, we have these really great qualities about ourselves, but then we also have these challenges that we keep bumping up against. And so if any of these challenges resonate with you, or if you have some that I don't mention here, go ahead and post it in the chat because we want to know. We can talk about those things. Some of the challenges are if you're avoiding the commitment to your own soul's truth. And so this is like being a passenger in your own vehicle, but you're allowing someone else to drive it. And it may be a person or a thing or a belief or society. There's a lot of conditioned beliefs in our society that we're not even aware of. You may have some continual resistance to your own doubts and fears. And if you cannot access and face, just acknowledge your own fears, and you are somebody that works with other people, especially in the world of transformation, then it's going to be difficult for you to hold the space for other people to access their fears if you haven't accessed your own. And then you may be denying vulnerability, which is similar, but that it may be just ignoring the pain of the challenge or change that is facing you. And again, if you can't go there, it's going to be hard for you to hold the space for your clients or potential clients to go there. And also, that being able to access that pain and that vulnerability may very well be where your greatest potential lies, where your greatest opportunity for personal growth and transformation is sitting right there like a pearl in an oyster. So we're gonna, that's who this is for. So if any of this resonates with you, and please share in the chat what your personal challenge might be at this time, if it's not specifically one of those things. And we're going to address those as we go on. So Lisa, would you like to give kind of an overview of exactly what we're going to discuss today? You may need to unmute yourself if you're muted. Okay, I see you're talking, but I don't hear you. Are you muted?
Nope,
Still not hearing.
I hear you.
No. Did you click your little microphone at the top? You did. Well, keep working on that, and I'm going to go ahead and share.
Good job.
Okay. So basically what we're going to be discovering today and talking about is we're going to talk about the results from the Spiritual Warrior quiz, which was really interesting. And I'm so excited about how many people took that quiz. We're also going to explore the 5 specific energies needed as you follow the path of a spiritual warrior. Those energies are really the container that help you hold your path. It's a container. We'll talk about what that means in a little bit. So we have some stories about the 5 energies and how other people have used these energies and embraced them in their own personal transformation. And then we're going to show you a way to take all this information forward to begin your own transformation or to continue the process. Right? Lisa, do you have sound? Not yet. Okay. Well, let me talk a little bit about the container. So the container is required for us to maintain the practices of a spiritual warrior. And so we call these the 5 entities. And there's more about it on our blog. And Selena, you're going to post a link to that a little bit later so people can go to the blog as Lisa's talking about it and going through it. Right? Yeah. And then my screen's being a little silly. There we go. So we're going to talk about the 5 energies. In our second conversation, we're going to introduce you to the 10 practices. So this is a 3-part webinar series, and today's really going to focus on the 5 energies. In our second call, we're going to introduce you to the 10 practices. But as we were discussing how and how much to share and what would be the most valuable for you, we realized that just skimming over all 10 practices, although there's some yummy stuff in there and important stuff, it wouldn't be enough for you to just take away and work into your life today, right in this moment. and that you would get the most value if we just took one of those practices and go really deeply into how you can apply that immediately. So we're going to go into the practice of detachment, which is the spiritual practice number 8. We call that the practice of high intention and low attachment, or no attachment. This is a practice that's really advanced on our spiritual path. I think if we spend a lot of time on that, it's going to help you with all the other practices. Some of you might be familiar with the author and activist Lynn Twist, and she talks about the cultural conditioning of specifically of our Western society, and that we, through our advertising and materialistic values, we have become really conditioned to feel unworthy, or that we are not enough, or that we don't have enough, or enough time, and that we have this sense of needing more, that there's not enough, and that more is better overall. And this is really a cycle that we may not even be aware of. She even goes as far as, at some point in the not too distant past, we went from being citizens to being consumers, and that we're considered consumers. And that's, I don't know about you, but it kind of stirs up an icky feeling in my gut, my solar plexus, to be considered a consumer and not a citizen. And we're going to talk more about that in this process of on the path of detachment, and how to move away from that illusion and set the intention for our highest calling and our highest good, and to be able to detach from those messages that aren't in alignment with our truth. So we'll go more into that. A lot of that has to do with time and money, and our two biggest drivers in terms of our belief system. So Lisa, I want to check in. Do you have a microphone? Can we hear you?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I had to refresh the page. Maybe this is part of what I'm doing with these 10 practices and the 5 energies. I'm refreshing my familiarity with them. I'm practicing each one of them as technologically there's another challenge. So
technological detachment, that's what you're saying.
I think that's true, which is really funny, because the next thing I'm going to talk about is what is possible from this work.
Yeah, go on, continue.
So thank you for that, Shelley. I'm glad that you were able to let the people who are here with us know what to expect. In terms of what's possible for the work, well, obviously, what I just said, even though it was with laughter, how do you hold the space that you are in so that you can be who you really are and give others access to you as well? That's what's possible with this work. I know that these energies, these 5 energies that we're going to cover in just a moment, and the 10 practices, have literally saved my life and my family and my work. They are so powerful. And the main reason they're so powerful is because they allow me to access me and to clear out whatever keeps me from the divine. I remember a spiritual teacher said to me once, well, if you're thinking about, it's hard to not do the stuff that you do, whether it's to yell or to watch TV or soap operas or drink or smoke or whatever it is that you do. If you can see them as something that keeps you from the divine, then it's going to be easier for you to deal with them. So, Shelley, I just want to check in with you. My screen did a little funny thing. Are we still together here?
We're still good.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, good. Yeah. Just checking.
Good job.
I know. That's kind of like the path of the spiritual warrior and the energies. You just have to check in with them every once in a while. But the thing is, because I've lived with these energies and the practices, and as I've shared with you how I have applied them, I know that I live a blessed life. I actually had something on Facebook the other day where somebody saw a picture that I had up there it was my profile picture with one of my horses. And it was someone who knew me 35 years ago. And he says, "Don't you ever age?" I said, "Well, the camera was kind, and of course I age, and I live a blessed life." So that's what this brings. This work, allowing you to connect with yourself and clear the path for that to be in connection with the divine. Whatever that shows up in your life as is your path. But we're inviting you to start your path, beyond your path, and continue to do what you need to do to feel as though you're being who you are. I know that my path is spiritual. Sometimes that's hard to say. My path as a spiritual warrior is to share these 5 energies and these 10 practices with you and others. I want to share the power that they have so that you can be who you are and that in the world. So that being said, and Selena, I want to just check in with you with the chat. Do you have any comments or anyone who is responding to any of this material?
We do. Let me turn my picture back on. We've got lots of folks that are just sort of reiterating what you're sharing and how deeply it's moving and touching them. Kim says she's worked with you before and she's really looking forward to meeting Shelley too.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Amy says holding the space and giving others access to for ourselves as well. That's really beautiful. And Donna is saying clearing out what keeps you from connecting to the divine. How do you stay out of your own way? That's what it's all about for her. So yeah, we've got lots of folks really resonating with what you're sharing.
Wonderful, and thank you all for sharing. I love, even though there's tech problems, there's still the interaction and the connectivity, which is what I really, it feeds my soul, is the connectivity. So thank you for that. All right, let's take a look at the warrior quiz. Now, I think almost everyone here who is in this series took the quiz, but perhaps not, and that's okay, because you can always go and, Selena, you can post that if you haven't taken it, and you can see where you are. But what I want to do is give you some ideas about what the results were. First of all, Shelley and I were blown away. Like she said, yesterday there were 285 people. There's probably over 300 now who have taken this quiz, and it's from all over the world. And it just warms my heart to know that there's so many of you on this path. Actually, this is the second time that I've kind of offered this material to the world. As I said, the first time was when I began my work with the horses. And there was a response to it. But over the years, I guess everyone's path has become more obvious and more earnest, because there's a lot more people who've been responding to this material. And so that, again, is another way that I know that I'm on my path when I'm offering this to you. So I want to share with you the trends that were, I'm just checking something on my computer. Thank you. That's a trend, too. I want to offer you the trends that Shelley and I found from your responses. Basically, the people who took the quiz were, all of you are generally accountable. That's amazing. You do what you say you're going to do, or you're known for that. And you're also open to new perspectives and outcomes in your business. We know that is very important, especially when you've been thinking about it being a certain way, and then, okay, maybe I should be open to it being a different way. Actually, 50% of you make spending time in nature a definite priority. If you remember, the number 5 was definitely, and then the number 4 was usually. Well, it was split, the rest of it, between usually and sometimes, those of you who made spending time in nature something very important to you. So that really told us, how can we spend more time in nature? And generally, the people who took the quiz hold your core desires and values close to your heart, and you trust the unfolding. that is definitely someone who's on the path. Also, you, for the most part, you who took the quiz, live consistent practices that help you stay conscious and aware. And I know that if you're here right now, that you are on your path, because this is a consistent practice of just seeking, because I feel like we're all seekers. And so this is just another way of seeking. Also, the people who took the quiz could take more time and use support to feel your feelings and use them to guide your life and work. There were more of you who seemed as though you could feel your feelings and you did use them, but the percentages showed that you could definitely do this more often and use some support in that. Also, listen to and understand their body signals. So again, that goes hand in hand with listening to your body. Because we can listen to our body, but sometimes we don't really know what those messages mean. And part of the spiritual warrior's path in this practice is knowing the messages behind your feelings and emotions and knowing how to manage them and integrate them into your life. And several of you, I'm going to say more than several, and I'm in this category, could make self-care more of a priority. Self-care is what I said when I was trying to deal with just making the business work, or when I'm wanting to take care of my daughter. If I'm not okay, if I check out, or I'm not truly in touch with my authentic self, I cannot be there for her in the way that she needs me, nor with my husband. And it's so critical for everything. And it seemed like there was quite a few of you who could use some support in that. And finally, those of you, I remember when I said you live consistent practices that help you stay conscious and aware. Well, there were also the other part of you who could use more time doing that, and also could use more support. So that was kind of split, right? Like we live our practices, and yet we can always use support. And so the quiz reflected that. And then also, two other trends that I thought you might want to know is that most of you are in two categories. Either you're on your path as a spiritual warrior, and we invite you to ask yourself, what support would you need at this time to continue on this path and create the life and business that your heart is calling you to? Or what could take you and your life's work to the next level? So here you are on your path. So a couple of questions. What do you need to support you to really go to that place where your heart is? Or what do you need to take where you are to the next level? So many of you were at this place. And the other group was your path as a spiritual warrior has just begun. So you're on the path. However, you are at the very beginning of this path. And something that's very interesting about that and very important for you to recognize is that this is a very fragile time for you because you've just started this path. Remember when I said, and Shelley was talking about, she went to the, I love this, moving PMSD, post-traumatic moving disorder is what it was, right? And for me, I just started doubting myself and saying, oh, all the old stories. Oh, who are you to say you can do this? Who are you to think that you deserve to do this? So when you begin your path, and you're just at the very beginning of it, and I think, Cheryl, you said you are, it's a fragile time, and you need support. You definitely need support. And so two questions you can ask yourself, and see if you can be really honest about this, is what or how are you holding yourself back? You just started. What's keeping you from going forward, if you are? So it's time for some self-reflection for you and some support, because the fragile part that you are experiencing right now is very fragile. So you're not crazy, and everyone who goes on their path experiences this. So I'd like to ask you, Selena, did anyone in the chat have any comments about this? I really wanted to ask you before if you're surprised at the results, or are these results something that you would have expected, or are they totally different than what you said? You can go ahead and type that in.
Lisa, this is Shelley. While
Mm-hmm.
Selena's checking the chat, also, as we move into the next section, I just want to be mindful of our time, that we have about 15 minutes to...
Oh, really? How do we do that?
To cover the 5 energies.
Okay.
I know we get really involved and excited about this, so I want to honor everybody's time.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, Selena? Was there something from the chat that people were saying?
You know, I think people were on the edge of their chair listening. We did have Linda say that she was really focusing on accountability and her focus and consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And Amy's happy that she's connecting here with like-minded women here in the chat
Mm-hmm.
and on the video. So I think we can continue.
Great, great. Okay, now I'm going to get into the 5 energies of a spiritual warrior quick while I have video and audio here. So let's hold the space, and Selena, you can certainly post that link to the blog, which is where I've written about these. Now, we've sent these out, this link to the blog, to all of you who are on the, well, no, not everybody who's on the call. We have sent it out to a lot of people, but anyway, here's the link so you can read more about these. First of all, I want to say that the path of a spiritual warrior, horses and energy, all 3 of those are just a dynamic combination, and we want to talk about how they all fit together. And also, we refer to the 10 practices, which you received a copy of as well as a result of registering for the webinar. We want to let you know that the 5 energies are the containers, so to speak, or the context that you need to hold as you're practicing the 10 practices. So first of all, let's look at what a spiritual warrior is. A warrior is someone who listens to their own spirit and is someone who can sit in each moment with the intention to experience whatever the heart and its infinite wisdom has to offer. And that we survive. And through sensing what's going on in our environment, and we respond accordingly for the good of themselves and the good of the herd. Life skills that are important for all of us. So a spiritual warrior really does feel what's going on, what is the best thing for them and everyone else, and it's the attitude of the spiritual warrior who dedicates herself to ongoing awareness for growth and transformation. And self-aware, the horse wisdom really touches us in so many ways, but mostly the horses are about living together in authentic community. They're herd animals. I mean, I think people are herd animals. They're community animals anyway, but we often see ourselves as separate. So that's what the energies are based upon. Self-awareness, horse wisdom, and what is the path of a spiritual warrior. So let's take a look at these 5 energies and what they are. There is congruence, creating connection, emotional and energetic agility, detachment, and discipline. So congruence, creating connection, emotional agility, detachment, and discipline. And these are so special. And I want to talk about each of them a little bit, but I want you to remember that you can read more about each one of them in the blog at the link that Selena has posted in the chat. So first of all, energy of congruence. Congruence, let me just ask you this question. Does who you are on the outside match with who you are on the inside? Or do you feel like you have a mask? Or do you feel like you have to be someone different in different places? That is one of the most important aspects of the path of a spiritual warrior, is the energy of being who you are authentically. Let me give you an example of someone who went through the first path of spiritual warrior. And he was someone who was in a corporate environment, and he left, as I'm sure many of you can relate to, And so he left because he wasn't being fed. He left because it wasn't who he really was. He didn't feel like he could be his authentic self. Well, so he said, okay, I'm going to train to be a coach, and then I'm going to coach those corporate people. And then he said, but wait a minute, why was I coaching these corporate people? I was coaching them to be what I didn't want to be, and I left. So there was lack of congruence, right, with who he wanted to be himself authentically, but he was coaching people to be something that did not resonate with him at all. And so finally, through the practices and the energies of a spiritual warrior, he was able to understand this aspect of congruence and to begin to trust himself and his authenticity and to brand, those were his words, brand himself in congruence, that who he is on the outside is what he was offering on the inside. And he is very, very happy. And I think this person may be on this webinar series again, to go through the course again, which is fabulous. And we are very happy to have that for people that have been through it and want to go through it again, or recognize the value of all of it. Because remember, we said we were going to be telling you how you can take this further. So horses teach us about congruence in a very interesting way. They don't read our minds. They read our energy. They read how we're feeling. And so if the energy that they're feeling doesn't resonate with what they're seeing, then they'll either ignore you or they're going to hightail it out of there, because for them, as beings that are very, very sensitive to their surroundings, because they must be, because they need to be able to survive, right? So if they see something that doesn't look right, no, looks one way and doesn't feel right, then they have to respond in order to maintain their survival. Well, we humans who are so great with being one way on the inside, even unconsciously, and often mostly unconsciously, and another way on the outside, you can imagine they don't want to have anything to do with us. So if you want to be in relationship with a horse, you need to be authentic. The same, you need to be congruent, be the same on the inside as you are on the outside. So that's a bit about congruence. Now let's look at this energy of connection. And I said to you before that when I offered this path and these energies out to all of you, it was all about creating a community or a herd so that we could connect. And I love the interactive aspect of this webinar. And this is why we do it this way. And when I first, way back when I'd left the corporate world, the only thing I really wanted was to connect with myself. I didn't feel like I was who I am. I just felt like I was this person living somebody else's script. And the epitome of it all was when I was 16, my mother and sister wanted me to move to New York City from a farm in New Mexico to become a model. Well, I didn't want to do that. And I knew that if I went, and I don't know if I consciously knew this, but I knew, and somewhere in my mind, if I went to New York and became a model, the buds of who I was at 16 would change forever. And it took, well, I guess it took about 40 years, no, maybe 30 years to get to where I needed, back to the beginning, so to speak, so I could really look at who I was. And it was only when I did that, which was very much working with the horses because of this connection thing. They won't connect to you if you're not congruent. Then I could begin to connect with other people. I could begin to connect with those things that gave me passion. I could begin to connect with others and invite them to connect with themselves. The energy of connection begins with yourself. Who are you? How can you love and accept versus shame, blame, or judge yourself? Connect with yourself. Horses teach us so much about connection because they are herd animals and they help us to remember that we are too. So that's a bit about connection. Now let's look at the energy of emotional agility. Now, emotional agility is a skill that we actually weren't taught in school, and basically what it means is that we recognize what's going on in our environment. We don't take it personally. We just use it as information, either from our bodies or our environment. We see if it's directed towards us, if we need to do something about it, not taking it personally. And then either acting accordingly or letting it go, going back to grazing. So let's take an example of emotional agility. When my daughter was diagnosed as schizophrenic, it was so tempting for me to make it all about me being a bad parent, or me having something wrong with my genes, or I'd done it all wrong. I had to let go of that. I had to recognize that this is information about where my daughter is, how we are in relationship, how we are in our family. This isn't about me doing something wrong or being wrong or having something wrong with me. It was information. And from that information, I needed to do research. I needed to find out how to support her, how to help her. I needed to get into action around that. And then now, as I go through Al-Anon, which is a 12-step program that's like Al-Anon, I get the support I need along with my spiritual practices and the energies that I need to take care of myself. So that's emotional agility. Feeling all of the feelings that I felt, which were fear and doubt and terror and shame. And then instead of judging myself and blaming myself, seeing all of this as information, doing what I needed to do for my daughter, and then taking care of myself. Or going back to grazing is what we call it with horses. It's because you're nurturing yourself. So emotional agility is something that we did not learn. And we are going to learn so much more about that when we go through the 10 practices. And when you want to go into a deep dive around that, we have so much stuff. And I will tell you, this is truly transformational. I can't imagine how I would handle this if I didn't have it. Then let's look at the energy of detachments. And, you know, I really would love it if all of you would just share what you're feeling or what's coming up for you in the chat. I realize that I'm kind of going through this quickly, and I want to remind you that you can read more about this and the blog, and also that we will do a review of this on our next call. So know that you have a way to go deeper into this. And in fact, detachment energy is also a practice. And we're going to do a deep dive into that. Right, Shelley? Isn't that what you said? Yeah, you can just shake your head because I can see you if I can't hear you. All right, detachment is a state in which a person overcomes his or her attachment to the desire for things, people, or concepts of the world, and thus affecting and in giving us a heightened state of awareness. So letting go of our attachment to all the stuff we want, the way we think things have to be, so that we have a heightened level of awareness and we can act from that place. Well, it's also viewed as the main obstacle on the path of a spiritual warrior. I can say that very easily. In fact, when Shelley was writing the emails that we sent out to each one of you who signed up for the webinar, that had beautifully written things from Shelley about each one, which is another way you can read about the 10 practices, and I'll tell you more about that later. When she was reading about detachment, she says, I think detachment is hard for me. She said she had a hard time writing that one. Well, I can definitely say that. And as I shared with you in my personal story, yeah, I thought things had to look a certain way, and if they didn't, then I had failed. So detachment is something we really need to let go of. And horses don't have attachment. That's a human thing. It's very interesting. So they may have schedules or rhythms, but they're not really attached to them. They're so adaptive. And humans are supposed to be the ones that are so adaptive. However, I feel like horses have taught me a lot. I want to share with you a quick story. Shelley, I'm checking in with you on time. Shelley and Selena, how are we doing? Am I doing okay?
We're just at 60 minutes, but everyone's still here with us, so hopefully everyone can just hang on a little bit longer.
Okay, I probably say we have like 7 to 10 minutes more if people can hang into that. But this I want to tell you stories about how people experience this work. There was a woman that came to work with the horses, and she had really the best way of telling you about what she learned about detachment. And so I'm going to read what she sent me. She said, Equine Coach Simon taught me so much. I realized the deeper meaning about living in the present. Because remember, and this is me, detachment means being in the future, you need to be in the present. So raised as a Jehovah's Witness, we were taught to always look forward to Armageddon. This future that we would live in would be a perfect world of paradise. If we died as a believer, focusing on the future and Armageddon, we would be resurrected into that perfect world, and the non-believers would be dead for eternity. What a gift to understand where this living in the future and attachment to it stems from. I am so grateful to Simon for the experiences of how it can truly feel to be in the present without attachments to the future. I was there. I got to be part of that. I loved it. Thank you. Thank you so much for that lovely story and experience. So you might ask yourself, where are you attached? And how could detachment serve you in your life? You can share that in the chat. All right, now the last one is discipline. And I have to say, there are so many of you in the quiz who shared that discipline is not your friend. Let's just put it like that. And that you have, there's a lot of you who probably have very negative connotations about discipline. Well, the energy of discipline in the context if you're going to go on the path of a spiritual warrior is going to have to be a little bit different than it's not your friend. So I can easily say that when I take care of myself and I practice discipline of the senses and discipline of what I think I need to do, I am more free to engage with my family. I'm more free to be spontaneous for different things to come up. I feel better more often. So this discipline gives me the clarity to move forward in ways that I know are true to my heart and my spiritual path. And so the practice of discipline is actually the practice of freedom. If we give over to our senses, we become prisoners of them, prisoners of these senses. And if we're prisoners of our senses, then we will not be able to be in the present, which is so critical. Well, so there we go. Those are the 5 energies, and I feel like we went over them, and I gave you some stories that might help you to remember them. However, I am now trying to scroll down here with my 2 screens. I feel like I'm on Star Trek. All right, Selena, did we have anything from the chat about that?
We did. We had lots of activity there. Amy said small times of detachment allowed her to remember her inner knowing of who she was or who she is amidst raising precious babies, as she's been a stay-at-home mom. And Julie's mentioned that detachment's a big stumbling block from her. We have some stories about how horses have helped people come more into the present. And Donna says it's interesting to think of discipline as creating freedom. That's not how we usually characterize it. Yeah, really great wisdom showing up in the chat.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, we are not finished. We are going to be continuing this conversation. And just kind of check in with yourself right now, whether you're listening to the recording or you're here live. How do you feel? Can you feel the energy of connection here? Can you feel the energy of community? And can you imagine what your life would be like without this community? Some of you may know what it's like without the support. Can you imagine what it would be not to have a path, not to have awareness of these energies? Imagine not living as your authentic self, no matter how hard it is. Well, you don't have to, because if you're here, you are ready to begin. You do have the courage to begin and continue your path as spiritual warrior. So let's take a look at what we're going to be doing next time. Shelley, you want to share with that? We have some goodies for you. But Shelley, if you're going to share with us, you need to just unmute your mic.
Okay, I'm here. So, yeah, in our next call, like I said, we're going to be covering. We're going to go take that deep dive into detachment and how to create high intentions. That just because you can detach from the emotional outcome of something or goal or a relationship doesn't mean you don't still have goals and intentions and all of that. So we're really going to go into that, and it's going to take most of call number 2 and number 3 to cover that information.
Right. Shelley, I don't know if you can see this particular thing that's on the screen right now. We're going to be welcoming a special guest next time. We're going to be welcoming Kim Carpenter, who is a business mentor, social entrepreneur, and activist. And actually, Kim is one of my mentors, and she's going to share how her experience with horses has impacted her path and life. And we are so happy that she has agreed to do this. Thank you again, Kim. We're going to revisit these 5 specific energies. And what I want to invite you to do, we have an invitation for you to review these 5 energies through the blog and to go back to your email series that Shelley wrote that was so incredible about each day on the path of a spiritual warrior and each practice. And this will very much prepare you for going deep into attachment, as Shelley was saying, and all of the other practices that we'll look at and cover. So get started now on your path and practices through a deep dive into the practice of detachment. And that's what we will do next time. And then, of course, there's going to be more stories on how people are using the 5 energies and the 10 practices to keep them on their path, help them through the fragility of just beginning their path. And then finally, we are going to show you a way for you to take this information further and support you to begin or continue your path. I believe this is not just a saying for me, lasting transformation in your life, because I can say easily that they have helped me in my own transformation. And I know they do with all of our students, because we put all of this material and everything we do at Equine Alchemy. This is just the first time that we've done it in a way where it's specifically focused on the 5 energies and 10 practices. Whew. That was definitely longer than we thought. Forgive us for, and we honor your time.
You did well, and most everyone was able to stay with us. We had a few people who had to go because they had other commitments, but we are in good shape. Thank you.
This is recorded, correct?
Yeah, it is. We're good.
Wonderful. Thank you all. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, Selena. You are as lovely and beautiful and smart and totally helping us. And Shelley, of course, in partnership. Thank you.
See you next time.
All right, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.